multiculturalism, but it focuses that on the notion that materialism does not produce satisfaction. Humanity is what counts. Okay, so that is the end of what they call the first tier. So the next system is a monumental leap in meaning, which is what is considered yellow. So yellow has this notion of flexing and flowing around problems, use, and respect all resources to survive. So here we see the notion that, life is a finite system, and we're embedded in that system, so we have to flex and flow to adapt to it, much in the way that beige, the previous first system, had to adapt and flow with the circumstances. But now we're in an information-rich context. So nothing man does works. Nothing is guaranteed. Chaos is natural. Chaos is part of the nature of things, therefore. It's starting to recognize that each of these different value systems have their place. Each is functionally fitting to the kind of life conditions that they're living within, and that life is a never-ending quest for meaning. The quest advances as new understandings and life conditions emerge. So turquoise then takes up the challenge of yellow and says, new collective grouping searching for broad spirituality to underpin working together. So this is the sense that individualness of yellow doesn't make the requirements to actually flesh out the art of survival. It's just too basic. So this next system mimics purple, but at a spiritual, quote-unquote, spiritual context, with kind of this ability to feel maybe subtle energies, which I talked about a little bit in my previous video. If this is true, there is ability to kind of feel that for better and for worse. I think it's highly dangerous, but that would be the case. And then the problems are too great for individuals. The sense of order in that chaos, so we can build an order within the context of the chaos. The next system hasn't been fully defined by this spiral dynamics system, but the idea would be that we start to map out the human brain. So if there's anybody that's really a good icon of this, we might see it in people like Elon Musk, and there's lots of question marks about the integrity of Musk. He is producing vast amounts of things, one of which is, this brain-mind interface, where we'd be able to have a new brain. And I've talked about this in fractal dynamics. I suggest maybe going into fractal dynamics. It plays into the context of this notion of 666, because it would be the notion that we are in the sixth tier, which would start at matter to vital life to reptilian brainstem to mammalian limbic system to complex neocortex, then to the sixth brain, which is human created, each as a response to the previous system of brain-mind. Sounds like matter wouldn't be a brain, but it has an interior landscape. It's not really a brain. It's a big stretch, but it is the precursor, because our bodies transcend and include all these other systems. They're holarchic. In that sense, the matter is integral, the foundation for which these higher systems can emerge. Same with vital life. Our body transcends and includes vital life. The reptilian brainstem builds off the vital life mechanisms, and so forth. Now, what we're seeing here is, in essence, a fractal pattern that's increasing in complexity at a faster and faster speed. People like Terence McKenna talk about this. He calls it time wave zero, and he builds it off the I Ching and cross-correlates it with the Mayan theory. Okay, so again, I'm really reaching into speculative territory here, but the idea would be, if he's right, that this pattern of emergence is happening faster and faster, which makes intuitive sense. It would make sense that the systems stack as they come together and they complexify and they integrate. And that seems to be what's happening. Whether or not he's right on the timeline of 2012, that's a little bit more of an open question. But we're going to see that something interesting emerges when we talk about Petrus Romanus, or the final pope. Scary territory. I'm not wanting to talk about it in some sense, but if he's right, the emergence of it is very interesting. So that would just be to say that the 666 might have actually occurred on December 21st, 2012. That would be the end of the material realm for, in some sense, but so few people would have transitioned through these different stages because they have to eat everything to get there, thereby making it the potential that only one person actually made it there. That person, I'm going to get into it, but the idea would be it's Lucius, or at least Lucius is the kind of like metaphor for him, the person that did it. what Terence's model would have been 6-3 or 6-3-3 or something along those lines. And, again, you have to look into my fractal dynamics model. I fleshed it out fairly detailed there. I won't get into too much depth. That would be the idea behind that. But that does bring us into 666 Fifth Avenue. So this is a particular building that Kushner, which is Trump's son-in-law, bought in New York, which cost an astronomical amount of money, like just unbelievable. Here's the interesting thing about it. I'm going to read what a person in response to 666 Fifth Avenue, which is a guy in 8chan, which is very interesting. I'm not saying he's legit, but he's been posting these ideas. And I recommend Unirock's videos on this because he fleshes it out in great detail. Very extraordinary fleshing out of this particular topic. But I'm going to read one comment on it. So recently it was announced that AT&T has split into 3 separate companies. One of the 3, the company formerly known as Bell or Bellis Laboratories, has been freshly renamed Lucent Technologies. This comes into play. Lucius was the guy that I seen in my vision on December 20th, 2012, which is interesting, whether or not there's any connection here. So this shit goes deep. You're telling me that AT&T was part of the crap way back. Lucent's statement that Inferno and internet computer applications are written in a new language called Limbo, which was designed specifically for the Inferno software environment. Inferno, Limbo, what? Where Inferno means hell and Limbo is the act of being suspended in a lower compartment of hell, awaiting judgment or punishment. So communications protocol designed into Lucent's Inferno software are called Styx. In pagan mythologies and religions, Styx is synonymous with the fiery brimstone underworld region where devils reside, in other words, hell. So AT&T or Bell Technologies are creating this software protocol through Lucent and, seemingly integrating it with RFID chips, which people like, if this is true, we get people like Aaron Rousseau's, suggestion that he talked to the Rothschilds about the adoption of an RFID chip where they could switch it off if people were not, like social credit that we see in China, and thereby they have no ability to buy or sell. This gets into biblical prophecy, which is interesting. Now we have a couple possibilities on this. Either biblical prophecy are absolutely right, or we have the manipulation of biblical prophecy through the Roman Catholic Church. Now it gets even weirder, but it could be a possibility that's the case. Okay, so keep going here. We get the 5G tech, which is, this is again fairly highly speculative, but the idea would be that they could potentially control your mind through 5G technology. I can't say that's the case. There's been some researchers that have, again, this is highly speculative territory. I'm just kind of connecting dots. But there was an interesting, I didn't download it, I thought I did. There was an interesting article released just the other day connecting that. So we got a document potentially from the CIA themselves accidentally sent to a journalist that seemingly showed how mind control was done in different ways. So the idea is through like electromagnetic or bioelectromagnetic pulses, they could, control people's thoughts and so forth. Very weird. Again, lots of question marks about the legitimacy, but that would be the idea that potentially through things like 5G, it would give them the capacity to use bioelectric tech to maybe with the integration of the RFID chip to control these things. And if you search CIA document mind control, I think it'll show up on Google if you're looking for it. That gets us into the financial constructs. So in 1988, The Economist magazine, which many consider to be a Rothschild-owned magazine, said in 2018, you can see it right here, we got to get ready for a new world currency. And there we see a phoenix with a gold medallion and a 10 standing on heaps of burning money. Some have speculated it could be related to Bitcoin, which is, in many respects, seemingly a transitionary currency that could easily the thing about it is that right now, unless you have things like quantum computing, it seems impossible to hack, Bitcoin related technologies. That means it's, extraordinarily hard to do. Whether or not it is possible, that would be the idea that Satoshi Nakamoto was maybe an individual controlled by the Rothschilds to integrate this new world currency, crushing the dollar, which fiat money, 1971, we dropped the gold standard. Historically, 32 years is the maximum period in which a fiat currency could go unbased. And then we got all these financial algorithms and so forth that's pushed it off to 40 years, which is historically the longest it's ever been. People are saying it should have crashed already, but that's potentially the reason it hasn't. We've got all these new technologies to allow it to be pushed, and it's pushed to this year, which seems like, if the Rothschilds magazine is right, this would be the year of the death of the dollar, which means that's a catastrophic thing. People, preparedness would be a key to get ready for that, but this therefore gets us into the Pied Piper of Hamelin. Now, in the Clinton emails, we got the idea that Trump was the Pied Piper candidate. Now, the Pied Piper of Hamelin has this kind of weird mythology built in where he leads